Hey guys, welcome back to As a Man Thinketh on Yanasa TV. Today I wanted to talk about Frankinfoods and the big push to force people into them. I think it's important to see this coming and at least try and avert it the best way you possibly can. Real quick, I want to thank those of you who have purchased Defend the Right to Farm t-shirts. I think we're down to just some women's sizes and 2 XXL for men. Those shirts are going in the mail today, so that's exciting. And again, you know, a lot of these products that we've been putting out there on Yanasa Trading Company right now are actually to help support Meet My Neighbor Productions. We've got some things in post-production, and we're trying to, you know, finish up some more content for you guys. So that's exciting. And I also have, and this is something that I found upstairs, we have a bunch of these hats. And so what I'm gonna do is I found a company that we're gonna send these off to. We're gonna put a leather patch on them that's basically got the Defend the Right to Farm logo on it. And so you can pre-order these hats right now. Hopefully we'll get them sent out next week, and as soon as they come in, if you pre-order them, we'll ship them out to you. It's gonna be a real leather patch. I'm not into the vegan leather stuff. I never understand why somebody wants to wear a vegan on them. But this one will have a real leather patch, and it will have the Defend the Right to Farm logo on it. And we only have 25 of them. So if you're interested, you might want to pre-order. So the other day, the Washington Post posted something that said, if you want to save money, skip breakfast. And it reminded me of a post from Bloomberg's Twitter account, or I think it was on Twitter, a couple years ago, that basically said, if you want to save money, replace your meat consumption with lentils. The truth is that we're being priced out of traditional proteins. We're being priced out of meat. And the more that we're priced out of these traditional proteins, the more we're seeing magically come onto the market of alternatives. The other day, somebody actually introduced a hybrid rice beef protein alternative. Okay, so this is lab grown, it's highly processed. I can explain to you kind of the gist of how they're growing this. Okay, so the rice has little pores in it. The rice grain has pores in it. And what they found is that the molecules within the grain of rice can actually adapt to the cells of beef and then grow that beef. So what they do is they take these cells, they inject them into the rice pores, and then they surround the grains with fish gelatin. And the end result is that they're able to grow this hybrid science experiment Frankenstein food of beef rice. My wife said that actually might take on. I mean, I don't know. To me, it doesn't sound appetizing at all. I would rather pay $26 a pound for a ribeye than eat that. I don't even understand it. Are these like the kids that used to play with science experiments and then eat them when they were little? Or maybe they don't eat them at all and they just sell them to other people. So this new rice protein is supposed to sell for just over $2 a kilogram versus beef, which is about $15 a kilogram, okay? So it's supposed to be much cheaper, and that's the big sell right now, right? We could do this much cheaper. Several years ago, if you remember, it was much more expensive. And then as the COVID pandemic came about, we started seeing our companies like Impossible Burger and Beyond Burger start miraculously dropping their prices to below beef prices. And a lot of that also had to have the beef market go up considerably in order for that to work. And then you started seeing, you know, alternative chickens coming onto the market, or, you know, fake chicken meat come onto the market. Tyson made a big shift into the alternative protein market, started shutting down plants, which also drives, you know, the traditional protein market up, right? Because there are less plants now that are processing them. Anyway, and the other big sell that they put on all of this is that it's cleaner. Well, what does cleaner mean? Cleaner, actually, by the way, is not like a regulated word. It's not like, you know, if the USDA requires a certain, you know, requirement for the word organic to be used. Cleaner doesn't mean anything. I think it's funny that they use the word cleaner to describe lab-grown meat, or cultured meat is what they're calling it. Cultured. It's cultured meat. It's cultural. They use these fancy words like cleaner, cultured. Anyway, I find it funny that they use the word cleaner to describe the process of lab-grown cultured meat whatever you want to call it. You put a name tag on it. The University of California in Davis recently released a study that said that lab-grown or cultured meats, these Frankenstein foods, are actually orders of magnitude worse for the environment than pasture-raised beef and pork and all these traditional proteins that we've grown up with. Orders of magnitude worse for the environment, okay? Hold on to that, because the word cleaner, as they are advertising it, says that it's cleaner for the environment. It produces less CO2. But here we have the University of California, of all places, telling us actually no, it's orders of magnitude worse for the environment. And it wasn't just the current processing. A lot of people think, well, with technological advancement, as these things unfold, it's going to be cleaner. From what they could tell, from the technology that we have and the direction that we're going, it'll be orders of magnitude worse for the foreseeable future. Now, here's my question. You know, the FDA does have labeling guidelines about misleading information. I wonder if this would qualify as a violation under FDA labeling. They also use words like slaughter-free, humane. It's still a living organism that you're forcing into this grain of rice. The guys who developed this apparently have not gotten the message that rice is in short supply. And actually the supply of rice has been going down since COVID. Every single year we start hearing more and more reasons why there's a deeper and deeper rice shortage. And there is a rice shortage. Just because you and I don't feel it here in the United States, countries around the world that depend on rice in their diets are facing a rice shortage. So this is something that I think is ultimately going to drive prices up in rice, not the rice meat thing. I don't think anybody's gonna buy it. I don't think it's gonna take off at all. I'm not gonna eat that. Ugh. Anyway, what do you think of this Frankinfood processed lab grown stuff? Do you think that you will ever eat it? I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on it. I know that some of you are gonna have some hateful remarks towards the industry, but what I'm seriously wondering is, could you place yourself in a position in the future where you may find yourself willing to eat something like a beef rice? Is there any situation, any circumstance that could put you in a situation where you have no other choice but to eat that protein? I think you might. There's something to be said about rising meat prices across the board, and some of the things that we continue to see going on right now. And I'm not just talking about plant fires and things like that. I mean, there are serious situations that are happening almost every day. For example, just this past week, there was a nationwide recall on pork and ham from a very large producer, Fratelli Barretta. Did you guys hear about that one? So they had this massive recall over salmonella scare. And I'll do another video on how frequently you're going to start hearing of foodborne illnesses coming from animal products. And they're gonna try and scare the living daylights out of you from eating it. Our national beef herd, you probably have heard the articles that our beef herd is the smallest it's been since 1951. The problem is we have a lot more people and beef demand is a lot higher than it was in 1951. And the other scenario that very few people are pointing out here is that the replacement herd is the smallest that we've seen since the 1940s. And somebody tried to correct all of this information a couple years ago, and people were talking about it being the smallest herd since the 1970s and 60s. But we've continued to go down in size. Now we're at 1951, and the replacement herd size is the smallest it's been since 1940s, which means there's going to be continued retraction. We have to start seeing the replacement herd start to rebound before we start seeing the national herd rebound. So beef prices for the foreseeable future are going higher than they are now. If you're smart about it, you'd go buy a quarter cow or a half a cow, put it in some freezers, because the reality is that we're gonna hit new record highs during 2024. I mean, that's a given. Based on the market, based on the supply and the demand, we will hit new time highs with beef, all-time highs, record highs in 2024. I think we already have hit some record highs, but we'll do it again in 2024. But the the prices won't peak until 2025 or 2026, until we start seeing ranchers holding back cattle for expansion. We're not going to see that restart. And the other problem I see is you've got companies like Tyson that have shut down processing plants. The price of corn is actually coming down. I think it's the lowest it's been in 3 years, which I realize doesn't say a whole lot, but I mean that, you know, the price of corn and feed is coming down a little bit, but they still have a lot of other major issues to deal with before it becomes economically viable to start growing herds. Feed is becoming more viable, but being able to process your animals, take them somewhere for processing, that's always a big challenge for a lot of people. And there's still backups. So if we wanted to take cows in now, if we had cows that were available to take to slaughter, and we took them to slaughter, we would have to be booking 6, 8 months, 12 months in advance. And you'd have to pre-invest in those slots. It's getting to be very expensive, very burdensome, and that's gonna continue until we see, you know, processing plants start opening again. Just rebuilding the cattle herd does not mean it's going to get to the consumer. You have to remember the big guys have already cut back on how much they're willing to sell you. Another example of cutting back and how this will impact farmers. I don't think we've seen it in the beef industry yet because they've still been liquidating, but when they try and rebuild, I think we're going to run into this. And this is an example. Cook's Venture, which was a chicken processing plant in Kansas and Arkansas, and they would send, you know, I think a lot of it was you buy the birds online. It was supposed to be regenerative, humanely raised birds, and they'd ship them out to you. It was a factory farming operation like everywhere else, but you know, their standards might have been a little better. They supposedly had good genetics and stuff. Anyway, they shut down last year, and when they shut down, they initially told the farmers, "Hey, look, we're going to buy all these birds that you contracted with us, and we'll get them processed." And then a couple of weeks went by and they came out and they said, "Oh, we can't process any of the birds, so we need you to just euthanize them." And then they told the Secretary of Agriculture for the state, or, you know, the agricultural department, to go in and euthanize all these birds. So you had 1.3 million birds euthanized at the end of last year because of this one processing plant go under, okay? And then they said they'd clean up the birds. I think they did it for a couple farmers. The rest of the farmers were left with birds. I mean, this company was going bankrupt. They were going under. They were liquidating. They were getting out, and they were trying to cut their expenses. And the farmers that contracted with them felt the pain. Well, now we're starting to see a lot of those farmers go out of business. We're starting to see bankruptcies. A lot of fallout is coming because of this. And those farms will be farms that go away. They're not coming back unless somebody can quickly change their marketing plan, can quickly change their strategy. But they're in so much debt over the facilities that this company required them to have, to contract with them to raise the birds, and then all of a sudden they break the contract, to go out of business, and leave them with dead birds. And the reason why they had the birds killed is because they were worried about bird flu. Now, I don't think that 1.3 million birds throughout these farms had bird flu, and they would, if you're going to make that case, you'd have to actually test and say some of these birds had bird flu. That was just an excuse. If anything, you know, what they should have done is let the farmers have the chickens to sell with them, do what they please with them. I think that they were trying to protect some proprietary genetics or something. Why they had, I guess the birds are technically the property of theirs, but the farmers are the ones who were out. They were the ones who had contracted with this company, were getting nothing for it, and then they're told that their birds have to be killed. Meanwhile, you know, while that fallout is still happening now, out in California, the bird flu is wiping out the egg industry. I mean, when we had the bird flu before, a couple years ago, California was mostly spared. But recently, California has been having to euthanize hundreds of thousands of birds because of the bird flu. It's hit the egg basket of California, and it's spreading like wildfire. So if, you know, the bird flu continues to consistently hit large pockets of production, the egg basket of California alone could easily raise the price of eggs all the way over here on the East Coast. So just 2 years after we saw record egg prices, believe it or not, it looks like we're headed back in that direction right now. And it's, from what I understand, it's still out of control. It's not something that is easy to stop. This bird flu, as I've mentioned in previous videos, is a highly unusual bird flu. I just wanted to emphasize that, highly unusual. Between food plant fires and viruses and, you know, dramatic herd reductions from drought and national recalls, we are in the perfect storm for higher protein prices. It is the perfect storm for future development of Frankenfoods. You know, it almost makes you wonder, is this coincidental or, well, you know what I'm thinking. I'm not gonna actually go there though. But we've seen a lot of these massive setbacks, whether they're climate related or they're caused by other unforeseen circumstances, just as the UN and the WEF really start pushing on us to start eating bugs, alternative proteins, stop eating meat. As they push that agenda on us, suddenly we find ourselves facing more and more hurdles trying to buy food or trying to afford the food, to the point. And what I see, honestly, with a lot of what's happening with the shutdown of production facilities, you know, the process, like I said, it's not just going to come back online for cattle farmers. I mean, it's the volume and the capacity is just not there anymore because a lot of it's been shut down because the herd size has reduced so much, and because they've decided to take their investments elsewhere, like alternative cultured proteins. I also think within the next 10 years, okay, and if you don't believe me on this, do your own research, but in the next 10 years, we're going to see one of the largest wealth transfers of land that we have ever seen in our lifetime. And a lot of this is going to be, you know, in my perspective, what it is you're gonna have these older farmers who have leased their land to the next generation of farmers who depend on those leases to be able to create the volume they need in the marketplace. And I think that those older farmers are going to start passing away. Their land's going to pass to their heirs. And these leases, they're not a whole lot of money. A lot of these farmers do it to maintain their properties, to maintain paying taxes on their properties, to be able to live on their farm and still enjoy being out where they are without giving up all their land. But their heirs are all living in cities doing other things. They're not going to want to hold on to this land for a measly little lease amount. So either, number one, they're going to raise the lease rates on these farmers, which is going to dramatically increase your cost of food, or they're going to decide to sell their land, and the land's going to be bought up by the large corporate farmers because they're the only ones that can afford to pay $24,000 an acre and grow corn on it, or they're going to sell their land to developers or sell their land to, you know, other people. But the reality is that somebody who's buying it to farm isn't going to be able to afford that land. So suddenly you're going to take, in my perspective, a lot of acreage. I think the percentage will be fairly large off of production, and that stays in production is going to be corporate owned, and it's going to completely change our entire food supply. That, to me, is one of the biggest things, and I mean, whether that's planned or not, I don't know, but I'm just saying it's just kind of the natural course of things. The price of land and things has gotten so high that it's just kind of the natural direction that we're headed. But it does seem like there's a lot going on, and it seems to be happening all at once, and it's impacting, you know, how the future of farming, and that is going to impact the price you pay for protein. So I ask you, with this information, and this isn't fear tactics, by the way, this is just me relaying the news, you know, whether I agree with it morally, whether I agree with it or want it to happen, that doesn't matter. What I do is I look at facts, I look at information, I look at what's happening, and I relay that on to you guys. And how you take that information, how you process that information, how you make future plans based on that information is completely up to you. If you want to freak out and go and stick your head in a hole, that's completely up to you too. This isn't about what I want to happen or you want to happen. It's not about what's morally right or not morally right. When I cover these things, what I'm talking about are just facts and information. And I do it so that we can process it, so that we can make plans. Knowing this information myself, am I trying to do things in the future? Yes, I'm working towards, probably harder than I ever have, towards other goals. Specifically, starting a meat company, trying to get things on our farm. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever talked about Wartime Farm, but that's something maybe I should do a video on. Utilizing every part of your farm for production in times like this. I'm taking those steps, and I hope some of you guys are taking those steps as well, because that's the only way that we're going to have a transition that continues to provide for ourselves and provide for others. Because a lot of these other things that are happening are happening. The prices are going up. They're going to go up from where they are now. And I guarantee you that there are a lot of people out there who are going to end up eating Frankenfoods, because it's going to be, cheap, affordable. And the sad thing about that is that these Frankenfoods are patented food products that are going to end up on, whoever comes up with it. Yeah, there's lots of small companies, venture capital companies that come up with these things. They always sell them to one of the main food producers. And when they get people eating these patented food products that they own the patent to, you can only buy that product through them. Nobody owns a patent on a cow. They might own genetics on a cow or something like that, or a special breeding technique on something. But anybody can grow a cow, right? But once you have these patented food products, it consolidates where our food is coming from and consolidates the power of food to just a select few. And we're already kind of there, but this is a major power grab over where food comes from, and the money involved in this, because of how many people there are on the planet and how many are going to end up having to eat Frankenfoods. It's unbelievable how rich these people are going to be. But it's not just about the money, and that's the scary thing about it. So let me know what you think. Are you going to eat some Frankenfoods, or are you going to do something about it?